Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ramanujam. You've already met Janaki Ghosh. This is supposed to be an interactive session, which means you have to talk. And the mandate that was given by Parmesh and Vishwanath was for us to discuss issues in higher secondary education. And then the idea was to structure the discussion somewhat rather, because if we just say issues, there are lots of issues. And so we thought we'll talk a little bit about some specific things that we would like to talk about. But that doesn't mean that those are the only things we should discuss. This is pretty much an open session, so people can raise whatever issues, points that they would like to raise. Now, maybe to initiate the discussion, I would like to say a few words of what I have heard from many teachers and in many of our discussions. So I work in this institute, but I'm also associated with the Tamil Nadu Science Forum, and through that I've been interacting with many teachers, science teachers, maths teachers over a number of years. And one thing that we always hear about is that if we want to, especially since I'm involved in some science and math popularization, invariably not at higher secondary level, because we have board exams, right? So board exams is a phrase that perhaps dominates the life of higher secondary children, and I suppose teachers as well for the same reason. So the shadow of the board exam is very, very long and large. In fact, it looms so large that it affects the quarterly examination for class 7 students, I'm sure. So in some sense that the preparation for competitive examinations and board examinations that, as I said, dominates, also impacts everything that happens all along in school. Now, so given that, what kind of educational opportunities are there at higher secondary level, apart from preparing for board examinations, competitive examinations, entrance examinations, whatever. Now, Janaki flashed a slide in the morning about curriculum for class 11 and class 12. And I saw that the class 11 list is longer, 12 is shorter. But in actual transaction, in many, many schools, class 11 curriculum is transacted extremely fast. I know of some schools which try to finish off in a few months, and then you start getting ready for class 12, right? So this is one thing that has been much talked about, and as a result, topics like things that are closer to my heart, whole lot of things related to combinatorics or discrete mathematics, which makes its appearance in class 11, pretty much gets swept aside because class 12 has nothing to do with that. So in terms of curriculum coverage, in terms of pressure from peers, from other students, from teachers, from school, from parents. So the attitude of the student towards mathematics especially is deeply affected by all this. And so I'm just stating a few things so that we can have something to talk about. So given all that, if this is how the life of our higher secondary student is, and how curriculum is viewed, curriculum transaction is viewed, what happens in classroom is viewed, then what is actually the mathematics education that actually happens there? And so in terms of students' understanding, so if there is an accent on performance, that's what I'm trying to say, then can it actually result in understanding, in capability, or does it happen anyway? I don't know what you think about this. Now, so given this, what are the kind of opportunities that are there? What can be done? Now, this is something I think we can take up for discussion. There is one particular theme that we were interested in taking up for discussion today. So, and that is about the role of mathematics projects. Now, if in the midst of all this performance pressure, is it really possible for interested children or those who find, they are scared of the exams perhaps, but are still willing to and wanting to do some mathematics? What are the kind of opportunities that are there for mathematical thought, for mathematical exploration? Now, I have had some experience with many children and teachers over the years doing some kind of science projects and mathematics projects. I can share a little bit of the experience. Janaki has extensive experience in this regard, and I'm sure everybody sitting here has some experience in this regard. Many, many teachers have worked on science and maths projects with children, and now can that experience help us battle this one big problem, right? There are other reasons also. I want to talk about that, but maybe you want to add something before we start on the discussion on projects. Anything you want to add? Okay, fine. So then, so this is really what we thought we would spend this good part of this hour about. So a discussion on math projects. Now first, let me then raise a question. In how many schools and teachers here have regular math projects running at secondary, higher secondary level, where students do projects? Sorry? Only 10th standard you have. Okay. Can I have a show of hands, please? Children doing math projects at, let's say, secondary and higher secondary level? No. First, this is my question, yeah? Okay. Now, the second question is math projects at higher secondary level. Okay, much fewer. Okay. So, in general, the math projects tend to be at secondary level or lower, but not at higher secondary. This is what I've heard from many as well. So, we are in particular talking about projects at higher secondary level for the discussion that we were thinking of today, but there's no, there are no hard and fast lines and there's no clear boundaries, at least as far as I'm concerned. Okay. What are the kind of projects that we are talking about? Firstly, why should we want to do projects at all? Now, since the hands that I saw was less than half the population of the room here, at least I would think that close to half the people have not done projects. So, if that is so, then if I am here to advocate, that math projects are very important, science projects are very important, and I keep mentioning these two together because very often I find the line blurred. I mean, it's very difficult to, especially mathematical modeling exercises, if you start doing with children, it's very hard to separate out, and one should not. I mean, the whole point is not to separate out these. So I'm just saying it as these. But let's just say math projects and not be very, very rigid about, curricular or disciplinary boundaries in this regard. Yes. So what do we mean by projects, and why should we be interested in projects? Yeah. Okay. So one important characteristic. You want them to be exploration. What else? For understanding. So this is what a project is, and here is why a project is. Why we need it. Okay. Then
For the future.
Preparation for the future. Like concepts. Should I put it here or here? What's your
Applications, separate
I should
applications.
put here. Okay, at least one person strongly feels it. What else?
Hands-on experience.
Hands-on. Okay. Here.
Applying mathematics to day-to-day situations.
we have a list here. So at least on why we should be doing projects. No, but why do you think these projects are needed for getting all this? I mean, why is our standard classroom transaction, after all, that happens for years. Why is that not good enough for developing interest, I presume, in mathematics? As a preparation for the future, come on, I thought board exams are all about preparations for the future, right? Entrance exams are preparation for the future. I mean, what else is it? So for understanding, by God, I mean, isn't whatever we do for understanding it as well? Now, I know, I'm just, turning it back at you. But just to...
It's only marks oriented. It's only marks oriented. We are focusing only on marks.
Right. Okay.
Not giving idea for the other side.
Okay. Do you want to?
So I think one thing that has come across is that the student will get to appreciate the relevance of what he or she is studying through by doing a project. Is that what most of you also see? So, but then if I think now we would like to see that if these are the reasons why it's good to do projects, then why don't they really happen in the classroom?
No, I am not buying it. I am not buying that these are reasons to do a project. You too.
While doing a project, student works more.
Students work more.
In classroom teaching and all, the teacher's part is also there. But while doing a project, the students also but concentrate. They work more.
Students do more of the work. Okay. One more reason you are saying. So why should we need? I mean, we see that projects are not the norm. In fact, very few actually even do at higher secondary level in this room. In this room, where people have come out of interest to a workshop of this kind, right? So, I'm assuming that here teachers are very much interested in wanting to do something, even here, right? So, then, why are, we are now giving all kinds of reasons. So why do we need them? I'm just trying to argue with you because somewhere we have to be clear, right, about. So, well, I think there can be, it's not that we disagree with these reasons. These reasons are all important. But somewhere there is an implicit criticism, implicit introspection for ourselves to see that whatever we consider everyday classroom transaction misses all these, right? In some sense, I think that is the main reason to do projects, right? Janaki was mentioning relevance. If everyday classroom transaction, if everyday mathematics in education as such was always full of relevance in the child's head, I don't think there is any need for anything more. So in some sense, somewhere, I hope we all have a vision of a mathematics classroom, of mathematics education as one, where children enjoy mathematics, right? Where children do relevant mathematics, where children work hands-on, where they apply concepts. And that should become the norm, right? That should become the norm from the age of 5 to the age of 15. We are very far from that. And especially at the higher secondary level, if you want to talk about missed opportunities, I think the one that really brings tears to anyone who looks at it is the higher secondary level. Because higher secondary level is when the children come, they already have, after 10 years of learning, they have a strong base, they have learned a fair amount of mathematics, and that's at an age where quite a lot of things can come together. We learned a good amount of science, good amount of mathematics, and there is some maturity. Of course, there are other things battling for their attention at the time, but in terms of capability, in terms of a launch pad for careers, etc., as we talked about in the morning, it's a wonderful time. And those 2 years, in terms of the academic opportunity that is available, mathematical opportunity available, what we make use of in the curriculum and in the problem-solving exercises, in all that, I think is very, very small. So we are ignoring a huge part of that. And how do we restore that? How do we bring it in? Now, as individual teachers, I don't think people have the freedom to decide, right? Because we live in a society, there are parents involved, there is peer pressure, there is job market, university admissions, all sorts of things are in place. So I understand that. But somewhere if we want to make a change, And if you want to make a change in some fashion that we can carry on, we have to think about what are all the ways and means. And I would say one of them is doing projects, right? So this is what I would say.
So if we agree that projects need to be done, I'm agreeing with that.
On that,
So basically, probably now we can discuss about what exactly is a project. What would you consider as a project?
this side of the plan.
So, do you see the possibility of such thing happening in your classroom? And has it, some people have already shared about what you have done, or what your students have done, and probably a little bit about your role in that. Because as teachers, we also need to facilitate that process when the students are, because they will be coming to us for asking the teachers to ask questions. So, maybe one example of what.
Yeah, we did project related to PowerPoint because technology plays a major role.
Can you use this one?
Nowadays, technology plays a major role. So we conduct a PowerPoint presentation. Like we will give the topics to the children, where they will work based on the topics that's been given. So there'll be a teacher also for each group. There'll be one teacher assigned, where the teacher also will be a part of the work and guide them in doing with the PowerPoint presentation. The topics is not the routine ones which we dealt in the syllabus. It will be different from the topics which they do in the regular syllabus, by which they'll also enjoy doing it. So the technology also comes into the picture. At the same time, mathematical concepts also is being dealt with.
No, no, this is not about a specific project, but I want to just go back and give one more reason for why one should do projects. I'm sort of slightly in disagreement with you when you said if our classroom experiences were if were ideal, then we would not need projects. And the reason being the following.
Projects will be part of the model.
Yes, I understand that,
That's okay.
but no, the disagreement arises from the following reason, that different children are differently capable. The way our school system is functioning these days, all children are treated equally. The one who's talented is in mathematics, as opposed to say somebody is talented in history, they all study the same level of history, they all study the same level of mathematics. Whereas the project would be sort of but I believe that children are differently capable, and there should be children who are interested in a particular topic should be allowed to do that topic, go further and at the expense of others. And a project is perhaps one way of doing it, even in an ideal.
I think what he's saying is important. It's very important, and I think that's a dimension that is to be thought seriously about, because there's, if we want to go in depth into something, right, it's impossible to do it while you're expected to master everything else, right? So, in some sense, when someone is deeply interested in something and wants to go into something, that kind of exploratory opportunities have to be created. And if it is at the expense of performance in something else, we need to look at that seriously. Right? I think that is the.
In our school, every alternate years we conduct maths exhibition and science exhibition. In that maths exhibition, we give more importance to Vedic maths, so our ancient thing. So this year also, the next month we have maths exhibition, and how many schools are participating? Nearly 35 schools in the city, they are participating in that.
See, to make the children really get interested, that should be the first basic aim. See, everybody is studying mathematics. What is the purpose? To pass the exams, or he wants to really improve his knowledge. So because mathematics plays a very big role, not only in school, even if you go and do engineering, or you study physics, chemistry, without mathematics, without that basic thing, you cannot do anything. So you have to create an interest in the children by doing some marketing work. Like what she was mentioning, this Vedic mathematics, that has been a missing factor. See, if you create an interest, see, playing with numbers, like even if you go to competitive examination, they ask you 2, 3, 4, 7 into 3, 2, 4, 8. What is the answer? Nobody is knowing. See, everybody has to try to solve it. See, if you know the Vedic mathematics, it's very easy to solve even with 2 steps. So that should be the aim, to create an interest. So the Vedic mathematics plays a role. That is not being in the syllabus at all, I think. That should be form part of syllabus.
Even up to 10th standard, only after the introduction of CCE, I think teachers and students are more interested in thinking of projects and other things. Even for 11 and 12, it is possible only when it's a part of the curriculum, and if it is insisted they have to prepare some projects, and they always think about marks and other things. And if they are going to be, they are going to implement specifically, code specifically that they'll be given some marks, I don't think it will be possible in India. That's what I feel always, because even in 10th standard, we visualize now, say to it now, the present scenario, students are interested in doing project only after they feel that they get some marks out of it. Not for knowledge, purpose they are not doing. That's what I feel always.
In our school, in grade 11, each student, even at the time of admission, they are told that they will get 30 hours through the year. They can work on a topic of their choice, and they have a presentation to the whole school sometime in February. The project can be anything. We don't call it project as much as just what will you do of your own volition if you didn't have any assessment criteria. If you are not going to be marked, if you are not going to be given a grade, and if no stakes are involved, what would you really feel like doing? So it has meant reading up on something of their choice, reading up on a mathematician's work that they were triggered by, just an extension of some topic, a history of some project, experimenting with something. And then students also choose to do something, like in our school there is an arrangement by which we all eat in school. So there are about 350 students and about 40 teachers. So using permutation combination, what can be a dining arrangement by which each month every student gets to interact with every other student. There's an arrangement by which class 5, class 6, class 7, one from each class and one teacher has to be on a table. So a student does the dining hall arrangement. Timetable is done by students. Again, we don't look at it as projects as much as this is the upkeep of our school. So how can you be a part of it? So the math students take up such things. These are constraints of teachers. These are timetables. These many a number of classes each subject must have. So draw up your optimal timetable. So students come up with that. There's a basketball league tournament. They come up with statistics, analysis. The psychology is a course that's offered. So often the teacher comes up with statistics like what's the correlation between physics performance and math performance, or some psychology project for which the math students are paired up to interpret statistics in terms of correlation and regression and how correct it is to interpret things like that and make a prediction. So often our classes are themselves conducted together. The economics and the maths teacher conduct certain topics together. Psychology and maths conducted together. And geography and math, when they are doing latitudes, longitudes and equations correspondingly. So as far as possible, we don't look at it like they are saying rightly, we don't look at it as projects per se which has to be done out of the class and given some emphasis, as much as how can all of knowledge be sensible and integrated into a whole. So we try and look for every opportunity where we can make it a connected whole for the students in 11 and 12.
Thank you very much. What's the name of the school?
It's the school, Krishnamurti Foundation School, KFI.
Okay, so I think Mr. Padmanabhi has given a kind of broad spectrum thing about what I wanted to say here. But can we just move on a little bit? We'll come back to taking more questions and comments. At this lots of exercises, right? Lots of exercises, right? I mean, all the time we are doing problem solving. But what is a mathematics project then? Few things. I would at least like to say, yeah. I would like to say a few things. One is time, right? Like in science also. What is a science experiment? You ask any high school child, a science experiment is something you just do on a table somewhere. A phenomenon that you demonstrate, that you do. But something that takes 1 minute. And the analysis takes maybe 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, that's it. Now, is there some mathematics that you do that takes longer than that? Now, this is a big surprise for many children. In fact, when we talk about math projects, the first surprise is, how can I do project in mathematics? You mean problem solving? Well, problem solving, but also, something that takes time. Now, I think doing mathematics that takes time, I think is one very important reason. I would say one important desideratum in your projects, what constitutes a project is that it should take some time, right? Something that can be done in 1 hour, half an hour, 1 day is not a project, right? However complicated it might be, right? So on. So I would say, each of us needs to have some criterion of what we will consider good. Some, relation to everyday life, this was mentioned. Now, there are many good points here. I mean, use of technology, hands-on experience, whatever. Integrating stuff across the sciences, could be whatever be the reasons. But I think two things are central. One is that it takes time. Second is assessment. It is not something that we consider where you can put marks as, look at it, 5 marks, 10 marks, 20 marks, no. The child understands, the student understands that it's not easy to mark. We understand that it's not easy to mark. This agreement between both of us is extremely important, right? Wherever the student considers that you're going to find it very easy to mark as 0 or 10, right? Many children are out of this thing. I mean, in fact, in mathematics, this is one of the main problems. That projects are one where they are difficult to assess and therefore good, right? So when assessment is complicated, something is going on there, right? So that is another reason I would say. I mean, in fact, it's connected to all this exam business because our examinations, modes of examinations never look at or test these things, right? I mean, assessment is supposed to assess knowledge, skills, attitudes, many things. But what we actually assess in examinations normally is 1/10 of what is possible. Forget understanding, I'm talking about this, right? Attitudes. What is attitude assessment? How do you assess an attitude of a child to a subject? Now, any activity that can be taken up over a period of time actually has this kind of things. So some projects have already been suggested. Maybe we should go on to some examples. And what we thought was we'll take up at least one case where we discuss a project that we have been part of at some length and then talk about various possibilities. So.
So what we need to understand is what qualifies as a project. So now the thing is, if to my mind, like you had suggested that some topic is given to the students and they gather some data about it and they prepare a PowerPoint presentation. Now that is also something which is very popular in the schools. That because schools do have inter-school competitions and making a good presentation of a topic, and it's basically students gather and one team is presenting. I don't know if that's the model you are talking about. Okay, right. Do you not think that in a project, whether it is or a short duration or a long duration or whatever, there should be some contribution when the student is exploring. So we were talking about the constructivist approach and all that in the morning. The student must have some contribution to even if it's a well-known problem, and the student is seeing it for the first time, and he or she makes some contribution or finds out something which may be known otherwise, but may not have been known to him or her. So there are many such topics in the 11th, 12th level which can be looked at as projects. But maybe I'll just share one example. This was, first let me see the. Okay, I'll just maybe just take out. So one, this is just a list, but I just look at the one project which I'll describe is the application of matrices to genetics. Now matrices is a topic that they do in the class 12, and these were students who actually were in class 11 and were moving on to class 12, and they wanted to. And they chose, these were biology students, I mean students with science combination with biology, who wanted to do, who said that they were just interested. So no topic was really given to them. Students searched for ideas on their own, and they wanted to understand how mathematics is applied in genetics. So one thing that they first explored was Mendel's ratios and how these ratios are transmitted. Basically, what are the Mendel's ratios for a you need not note down this list, that is to be shown in the end. Actually, I could not find the actual PPT which I'll just figure it out. So they started with exploring Mendel's ratios and generalizing them for any number of traits. So they knew about the ratio for 2 traits, and then using that they extended it for 3 traits. After 2 and 3, it became a little complicated, so they had to see the patterns, and they related it to the Pascal's triangle and figured out what are Mendel's ratios for any number of traits. And they could link it with the binomial theorem. But after that, one natural question which came is, how do genetic traits get transmitted from one generation to the next? So in this, I told them that I was dealing with that group of students. So I said, okay, you read up a little on genetic, the basics of genetics, because we don't want to get into the biology very deeply, but we will look at more of the mathematics. And and they were taught, they knew the basics of matrices. And so then they looked at a particular kind of inheritance, which is known as autosomal inheritance, where one plant population is considered, and which has 2 traits. The flower color is governed by a set of 2 genes. And so one gene is responsible for red flower color, and the other is responsible for white. And if you have a combination of the 2 genes, then you have a pink shade. So this is when both, it's a codominance where both the traits get manifested. So then they had to look for all genotype combinations. So what are in the population, how many combinations of genes, the parent population, how many combinations of genes can they have, and what would be the probability of an offspring having a certain genotype, therefore leading to a certain kind of color. So this was, of course, the idea of probability was used. And after that, we started saying that, okay, suppose today I have a certain proportion, a population of plants with a certain proportion of red, white, or pink flowers, then how is this going to, from one generation to next, how is this going to change at all, if it is going to change? So then they had to use matrix multiplication to figure out what is going to happen in the next generation and the generations thereafter. So this was a simple example because they had actually, it was involving only matrix multiplication, but after a while it became a little complicated because of 3 genotypes. There were 3 by 3 matrices that they had to deal with. And if you have to find out what's happening after 10 generations, then you have to raise a 3 by 3 matrix to its 10th power, which was not possible doing with the regular calculations. Then the tool was used to either do the calculation, or that was the point where I had to discuss what are eigenvalues and eigenvectors. These were class 12 students, and how you can, because they asked the question, but what if we didn't have the tool, how would we raise a matrix to a higher power? So then the diagonalization was discussed, and so the link, so immediately they could access a level of math which is not really done in 11th and 12th. And also they got to use that, so the technology tool was only used for computations. And so then I said, okay, now keep exploring what happens after 5 generations, after 7 generations, after 10 generations, and do you see any pattern? So then they concluded that the proportions tend to steady out. And then why, does it depend on the initial distribution or not? So these kind of explorations were done, and then they plotted graphs. So they wanted to plot a graph of each genotype and how it changes from one generation to the next. So they used some graph plotters, and if you just give me a minute, I'll figure out. If you could just take on from there, I'll figure out the slide which I want to show. So anyone could say something in the meantime. I'll just take out the. I'll just take out this.
Because they want to use the boards. Yeah, somebody wanted to say something there. Who's waiting? Can you just take the mic? I thought you wanted to say something earlier. And yeah.
Hello. Good evening. This is the first time we are going to have project in our school. For that, as you said, beyond the textbook level, what the children can do and what they can explore and how to create interest among them. The first time we have given the projects like how to connect math with biology. For example, the question raised is, one guy is doing PhD, I think. The thing is, can Usain Bolt cross the speed of cheetah? For that, and another one thing, math with calendar, and some topics based on this, the children, they have come forward with their projects. But after the school reopening, we will be on October 26th, we have that project. And math with columns, why the part is still drawing the column. In that also, the children, they are given project in that. So to develop their interest, to create an hands-on experience, based on this, the project has been given. We have yet to see that. And we are also started looking in started browsing in the net for all these things. And through partial differentiation also, this could be done. I have just gone through the website, not yet finished. Okay.
I mean, nothing is, this is all typed out in this form of slides, but the work was done by students. So these were the 3 genotypes, and the parent pairings were looked at, all possible parent pairings, and within each parent pairings, what is the probability that the offspring would have a certain genotype. And then the investigations were done, if you look at the second one, it says they explored the example of autosomal inheritance to create a model which would predict the genotype distribution of a plant population after any number of generations under specific breeding programs. So they had to write out the equations that if A0, B0 and C0 are the initial distribution of the 3 colors, then how would this change? So they had to frame the equations for n in terms of n minus 1, because the nth generation distribution would depend upon the previous generation. And this was written in the form of the matrix equation. Xn, this, and where these are the matrices. And then the most important equation that came up was how to get this in terms of, now this is a well-known model. It is not, it's not that they discovered it themselves, but for them it was a new discovery because they worked out all this on their own. So it was more like exploring an existing application, and they knew the nth generation in terms of the initial distribution, and that was very important. And of course these are again graphics calculator shorts, so they said that okay, after 2 generations I need to raise the matrix M to square it. So squaring and cubing was not a problem, but when you had to raise it to higher powers, somewhere they used the calculators, others used other packages, and then they graphed things like what would happen if all plants were fertilized with one particular color, or what would happen if alternate generations were fertilized with a particular color, or each generation is fertilized with its own genotype, and each plant is fertilized with its own genotype. So all kinds of explorations were looked at. And then another group got interested in blood groups and in how blood groups are transmitted and how you can determine the parent's blood group from the child and vice versa. So that became a separate offshoot of this kind of a project. So the topic of genetics has many such interesting areas which can be explored. So this is one kind of project where existing applications can be made accessible to students, and they can explore them using the mathematics of 11th and 12th level. The other kind of project would be where they select the problem entirely, and that would be probably even more, that is the real modeling, where they would select a real life problem and the teacher would have to help them and facilitate them to come up with the actual mathematical model and then perhaps solve it. So to my mind, these are the two kinds, and maybe Professor Ramanujan has some other kind of projects to share. So,
I'm going to use the board so I can see the lights.
can you switch this off? Lights, light. More lights are needed.
The lights will come on. It will take some time. Yeah. So the project that I want to describe, we'll talk about different kinds of projects and other things later. So I'll just take one example, and this is Sudoku. So I would say one first requirement to do a project is that you have to be interested in it. Okay, I like solving Sudokus. So. Now, this is something that I've been doing at different levels, some with undergraduate students and some with secondary high secondary students. And one criterion that I find very good for a project is that it's flexible. Like it should be sufficiently flexible so that you can take it up at different levels. Ideally, if students can continue the investigations later on in their lives, it would be ideal. So, oh, then I need to. Sorry, I'm navigating between all these. So. Yeah? Huh. So everyone knows the Sudoku, right? What is a Sudoku? Yeah? Well, this is only 3 by 3. You have a 9 by 9. I'm not going to draw a 9 by 9, come on. So 9 by 9, what are the interesting things about the thing? It's not any 9 by 9, right? What do you fill it in? You fill it with numbers from 1 to 9. Every row, there is a row constraint. In every row, a number appears exactly once. In every column, appears exactly 1. And then you have a 3 by 3 with a thick edge here. Okay. And then in this, in every box, a number appears exactly once, right? So, and Sudokus appear in newspapers. There are like lots of sites. There is one site that I should give the reference to because I think for anyone who likes Sudoku, this is it's called crazydad.com/Sudoku. So there is this so-called super tough puzzles, ST. The ST category is really particularly fun to do. Okay, so what is the project? What is it that we do with the kids? Now one is to play Sudoku, of course. But what kind of mathematics you're going to do? One question to think about is, Sudokus are there. Firstly, that is a precise number itself is something interesting to note, right? What I mean is, how many different filled in Sudokus are there? That's one precise number. Is that clear? Okay. If I give you a 9 by 9, right? In each cell, let's call it a cell, what are the numbers that you are writing? Anything from 1 to 9, right? So how many possibilities are there? There are 81 cells, right? So the number of Sudokus, so let me call it, this is the total number of possible Sudokus filled in, is less than or equal to 9 raised to the 81. That's clear. Okay. But actually the number is much smaller. Why? Because of the constraint, right? In every row, a number can appear exactly once. So for instance, let's start with the first row and write 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? This is one possibility for a row, right? If I just take a single row, how many possibilities are there? 9 factorial, right? This is going to take some time. Now, that's a very nice project. It involves at least 3 or 4 sittings in her first session, second session. I don't know to record what exactly the competence that happens in each session, but certainly it takes several sessions. And each time you are improving the bound. The bound comes down quite fast initially and then, gets slower and slower. Unfortunately, I should warn you that there is a place on the internet where the exact number is written down. But it doesn't mean anything, right? Finding the technique for calculating here is the important thing, right? Because this 9 factorial to the 9 is this picture, 9, 8 like that, right? Now, note that already you can improve the bound by saying row-wise you're getting this bound, column-wise you're going to get another bound. That will also be the same. What about these boxes? Every box will give you one. If I take all 3 simultaneously, what will it come down to? This is one thing to think about. Another thing to think about is that, okay, so if I fill in 3 such, one with rows filled up like this, another with just a column constraint filled up like that, another with just the box constraint filled up like that, then you know that I can merge all these 3 pictures into one by taking the minimum number on each of these cells and putting. If you just multiply that, you will get a bound. That will get you to somewhere around 10 to the 40 or somewhere. Now, I have interacted with students, and invariably after 4 or 5 sessions you can bring the number down to somewhere around 10 to the 35, half of what we began with. But different ways of counting, but one has to enjoy counting. I think that's the important point, right? By different ways of counting you can actually bring it down. Okay, this is to tell you that here is one exploration that can go on. Next. How many ways to fill in? I give you a partial Sudoku, right? That's how newspapers give it to you, right? I give you a Sudoku that is partially filled in. In how many ways can you complete? Now, we start with Sudokus that are almost full, right, for doing analysis. So one exercise I give is something like this. There are lots of variants here, and it's very easy to come up with these exercises. That's why I like them. Here is one. Construct a Sudoku with only 4 cells free. That is 77 cells filled in, only 4 cells free, such that there are at least 2 ways of completing it. Actually, exactly 2, but there is more than one way of completing it. That is the point. It's a nice exercise, and it will take some time. Not something that you need to think through how you would do. Here, theorem, prove. Any Sudoku with No. How many ways I have not got to? This is just one example. Construct one Sudoku is what I'm asking. Yeah. You can put different numbers on those 4 cells. No. Yes, you will have 2 ways of completing, 2 solutions. Yeah.
I thought a Sudoku meant there is a unique filling in.
Okay.
Okay.
So construct Sudoku here. No. I know what you mean. That's important. Here, what I mean is anything where 77 cells have been filled in, obeying those 3 constraints. Because now, he's absolutely right. In a newspaper, what is called Sudoku, what is proposed, is one where you are told that there is a unique solution. There is a guarantee given. Okay, so this is now. So here is a theorem to prove. Any Sudoku with less than or equal to 3 cells free, I'm saying free, I don't know what you can write, whatever you like, has a unique solution. Prove it. So, okay, you have to sit and prove it. Not very difficult, but you have to, sit and argue and set up terminology, do a proof. So this is another thing I consider very important. Any project should have one proof at least, one theorem to prove, right? The next important criterion, and that's also satisfied. Open problem. Here is an open problem. It is open. I mean, I don't know. What is the least number? What is the least number of filled in cells that guarantee a unique solution? With which you can guarantee a unique solution. Conjectured 17. That is, with 16 cells, people have come up with all kinds of Sudokus, which lead to multiple solutions, which don't have a unique solution. But this is a conjecture, nobody has been able to prove it. Why am I mentioning this as part of the project? Of course, we don't tell this as such, but start the exploration. If the student is good at programming, lovely, because here you can actually start with some initial configurations and then write a program to explore more. And that's a very nice programming exercise as well. But even otherwise, thinking about it is something interesting. And then you can mention that here is an open problem nobody has been able to solve so far because the combinatorics is really hard. Okay, and this is very, very elementary stuff. No deep combinatorics involved either. Then comes the less interesting ones, in fact, mathematically. But of course, what children are most interested in. Huh? Yeah, for 16 there are. So, and they are pretty complicated, not easy ones. And 3, coming up with solutions. I'm saying this is the less interesting thing, but what students are most interested in. Coming up with an algorithm, a technique by which you solve Sudokus. Now, there are all kinds of methods. I'm not going to go into detail, we don't have the time. This is to say that here is a great exploration. Not 1 session, 2 sessions, you can go for 10 sessions on this. Because, it's really flexible, really extensible. Because there are many different techniques that you can use, that you can explore. You can come up with definitions, you can come up with things. This is. Lastly, construction of the Sudoku graph. There is a very natural graph that you can associate with the Sudoku. What is that? On vertices, you can put in your cells. There are 9 by 9, right? So use 2 coordinates, have a pair of numbers going from 1 to 9. So Mn is a vertex, right? Now, when do you put an edge between 2 vertices? The vertices correspond to cells. You put an edge if they are part of the same row or the same column or they are sitting in the same box. That is, they satisfy some constraint. So this gives you a graph. And what are you putting in each cell? A number 1 to 9. Think of it as 9 colors. So what you are talking about is coloring this graph with 9 colors and making sure that adjacent vertices never get the same color. Right? So how many, so now it's a coloring problem and you can solve. This is a huge graph. There is no human being who can sit and solve. Right? With the power of technology that you've got, it's still very difficult to solve. So you can't do that. but there is enough analysis you can do. And the other thing is, it can lead to some reading. Here there are some couple of things that one can take to. In the notice of the AMS, there is a very nice paper by Hertzberg and Murthy, Ram Murthy, who is a good friend of many of us here, on Sudoku graphs and chromatic polynomials. That's not light reading by any means, but a very nice analysis. There is this is 2007. There is a paper by Crook, Notice of the AMS, 2009. This is very readable and very simple, in fact. Using very elementary techniques, there is an analysis. This is to show that, you're working on something that mathematicians take seriously and write papers about, communicate to other people, notices, but still, yeah? And so something interesting is going on. And each of these things that I'm talking about actually can be, expanded considerably. There are lots of this thing. I would say that in terms of literature, for this project, it so happens that the Wikipedia site called Mathematics of Sudoku is actually very good. It's very well written, got a lot of references, including the things that I'm talking about, other papers and so on also. So this is one exploration. So let's maybe get back to your list, or I'll just take, we have 5 minutes maybe? I can, yeah. What we can do is, because I think rushing through a list may not help much. What we can do is to prepare one and make it as part of the workshop, these things where we are putting up all the talks and slides. We can also prepare some and put up. Okay. His name is Crook, unfortunately, but yeah. Notices of the AMS. Notice of the American Mathematical Society. This is a journal, and no, but Google will give you all this and more. I'm sure I'm missing many interesting ones. I'm only talking about. So these are examples of projects that can be done. What I think we should do is to prepare many such, undertake some, and if we go through experience of, somebody mentioned columns, and I have done a lot of projects with columns in mathematics, where the students draw columns with particular symmetry, 4-fold symmetry, but not 6-fold symmetry, you can do this sort of thing. And you start with a column with, which has got mirror symmetry, and what is the least number of cuts and joins needed to transform it to a column which does not have mirror symmetry, but has some other symmetry that you want. You can do all this. And entirely possible, and there is almost nothing there. I mean, the concepts may come from higher mathematics, but it's something that actually students can engage with and do. It takes time, and over a period of the kind of mathematical learning that results in many of the projects, and Janaki has a very impressive list of a lot of projects that children can take up. And okay, so we are running out of time. So what we wanted to do was to say that there is, if we think about it, there are many missed opportunities that are there, and can we make use of those opportunities and give a taste of the mathematical experience. I think that's very important, because doing something which is open-ended, doing something which is investigatory or exploratory, where you discover something yourself, right? The joy of that, and that little theorem that I'm talking about gives a great deal of pleasure compared to, rediscovering something some great mathematician has done, because this is more, engaging, and it is something dearer to you, right? Now, and that kind of things we can always find, and if it can actually lead to some open problems, even better. If it can lead to something that, as I say, mathematicians want to think about, even better. But it's not required. And ideally, if topics come from closer to children's experiences, I think those should be privileged. It should be something that is, meaningful in the life of this. Games are very, very important in this, in my opinion, because children like to play games. I mean, I do a lot of cricket math. Cricket math with Duckworth-Lewis method we were talking about in the afternoon, or spin bowling, swing bowling. There is a lot of mathematics and physics waiting to be explored there, and it's totally exploratory. There are no deep theorems available to you for now, right? Just coming up with any formulation at all, discovering anything at all is a great this thing. and card games, board games, analysis of these games, coming up with that. I mean, I tend to privilege more combinatorially oriented ones because that's what I know. But I'm sure, and Jonaki has a whole lot of things that to do with analysis and calculus. So if we can try some of these and expand this range by more and more people contributing, and if we can develop a resource base of projects that we can take up in schools, I think over a period of time we can really transform our higher secondary stage. Yes. I'll stop. You have the last word. You have the last word.
Class 12. So calculus based and maybe probability based. So one is genetics and then exploring Mendel's ratios. Within genetics, exploring Hardy-Weinberg's law. So this is again, all these are based on applications which the student can study and learn and explore for himself or herself. Encryption, of course, has tremendous possibilities, and students find this an exciting area where they can, they start thinking about creating their own methods of encryption. Probability also, there are some, the problems like Buffon's needle problem, and extending it in various ways also could be an interesting, there's no time to get into all that, so. And fractals are an area which can really excite, bring in very exciting mathematics. Of course, it doesn't, this is a different kind of a problem, and probably this would be more exciting to the students, but I think we should leave it to the students because the project should be close to their heart. So if they are interested in the problem, whether it is an application based or whatever the problem might be chosen, but we as teachers need to be equipped. I think that's an important point we need to make. How do we equip ourselves to guide them? Because they will come to the teacher with problems and how to go further. So there is a stage beyond which, you really have to leave the student to himself or herself, but how to ignite the curiosity. And sometimes students come up to you and say, I really want to do a project, but I don't know how to choose the topic. Then you would have to help them. You can suggest then topics. So you need to be aware of what are the areas in which the student can do, and why I have listed them here, though probably it was not a good idea to list them like this, but the reason is that these involve mathematics which they can do because it's largely based on calculus and probability or differential equations or whatever. So they have access to the mathematics which forms the building blocks for these projects. So with that, I think we could conclude. If anybody else has any question, last question. Or any observation, comment. Yes.
I feel that the emphasis in any project should be on the content of mathematics rather than on any particular mode of presentation.
Yes, absolutely.
So
yes.
I think there is too much emphasis on how the thing is presented, how beautiful the lines are drawn, or which software is used to present it.
Absolutely.
I think this has nothing to do with the underlying mathematics. That has to,
Yes, that's what I mentioned, that nowadays schools have a tendency of having presentations where students actually want to come up with flashy presentations, and they use Flash and all the softwares to present things which they really haven't explored themselves. So that should not be encouraged at all. So it doesn't matter whether it's a physical model the child has made or whatever it may be, but it should be something that they have done in their own hands, and even bringing a chart paper which shows the results, what they have created, that should be sufficient in presenting a project. But I think if they have worked sincerely on there and explored themselves, then they would find ways of presenting. That doesn't matter really. But we as teachers need to be equipped with how to sort of facilitate this whole journey and many of these projects would take a long time, and they may really, as Professor Ramanujan said, they would go on beyond school level and beyond their school years. And some of these projects may even impact the choices that they make later on. It has happened. Many students have come back to me saying that we did that project and that led us towards mathematics, which is itself a very satisfying thing for a teacher, I think. So with that, I think.
Okay, so that's the end of the session for the day. So tomorrow again we start, I guess at 9:30.